Today I want to talk about gaining practical graphic design experience when you have no experience and how to get that first flood of clients, or just where do you start. Then this is a problem that a lot of people starting a new career face, because when you look at job listings, they all say the same thing. They want 1, 2, 3 years experience, but how do you gain that experience if no one will give it to you? No one will hire you in the first place. I started art school about 2 years ago, and I did some practices, and I've done some things that I feel have been very helpful with me now being able to get job interviews and job offers and even paid jobs. So I just want to share some of my personal experiences. This is not professional advice. This is not anything I learned in school. These are just things that I did during art school that I felt were really helpful and might be helpful to you too. So this would be good for people in art school with what do I do now, and maybe people who have been out for a while who are really frustrated and just can't land that first job and just can't get that first set of clients. So first things first, most people ask, how do I start my portfolio? Okay. Now, the problem with a lot of hobbyists and beginner portfolios is the works are they're not very conducive to a client's needs. For example, the work that I'm doing in my spare time is usually dark themed, gothic, gritty, but that's not something that I'm going to show to somebody who needs a wedding invitation done. And those are the kind of things we need. We need examples of brochures, business cards, logos, but let's face it, we're not making random business cards if we don't have to on our time off. We're really not. So I think it's a good idea to have 2 portfolios. I like to have my innovative original portfolio because there are clients that do want to just see the original creative side. So I like to have that portfolio, and I also like to have my professional corporate clean cut kind of portfolio. So how do you get a corporate clean cut portfolio if you're not coming across those situations? That brings me to my first point. This book is called Adobe Illustrator, the Professional Portfolio, and it's part of the Against the Clock series. This is a textbook that we're using for school right now, and it has just been a godsend. It's been a great buffer for my portfolio. A lot of my graphic portfolio consists of projects from this book. What's great about this book is they're client-based projects. So you get projects for fake clients, for fake jobs, with fake requirements and demands like you would get in a real job, but therefore real practical illustrations and presentations for you to show in an interview. Things like architect logo, identity packages, cereal package covers, video game covers, hazard icons, things that you may really need to show somebody, things you will use in the future. And it also doubles as a tutorial. It contains great tutorials. I mean, some of the most in-depth tutorials I've ever seen. I mean, it shows you pretty much screen caps of literally every keystroke and mouse click you're going to make. So it's really good. It's good for people with a lot of experience who want ideas for a more professional portfolio with things that are conducive to a business environment. And it's also good for people who are working from the ground up. So I'm working in Illustrator, so I'm taking an Illustrator class right now. So that's Adobe Illustrator, but they have it for the entire CS6 series. They have it for Photoshop, Dreamweaver, and InDesign. And I will leave a link in the description for you. So you could just click right there and get it. They're great investments. I can't recommend them enough. And it will leave you with a nice, professional, practical portfolio when you're done. All right. Okay, so we have the portfolio. Now, how do we get experience? How do we get our first lot of clients? All right, something that you have to really change your mentality about how you're going to go about job searching, because a lot of people want to just go and work full time, or they want to make graphic design their source of income. Which, I mean, I guess it can happen to some people, but the fact of the matter is that doesn't usually happen right out the door. You have to build yourself up first. So how do you do that 1 to 2 years experience? Well, I'm going to list a few ways that you can do that, but again, you have to change your mentality and just take a few jobs a month and keep your regular job on the side. Set like a deadline. Like I want to be able to have a year's experience in my background, so I'm going to take a year to work my regular job a little bit longer while doing the stuff on the side, so you will still have your stable income right now while still building up a year's worth of experience alongside your regular job. So there are 2 ways to do this, because Here's the thing. Remember when I said employers want 1, 2, 3 years experience? Fact of the matter is they don't need consistent full-time experience. They just need you to have consistent enough work in this timeline. You see what I'm saying? So you don't have to have a regular job. There are things you can do alongside of what you're doing now and still honestly put on your resume and say to your interviewer, hey, I've been doing this for this amount of time. So, and this is a much easier way to go about it than just trying to have this specific field be your income right off the bat. Okay, so the first thing you can do is volunteer work. You may not know this, but volunteer work is actually a perfectly legit item to put on your work history. Employers have no problem responding to volunteer work. So this is what I did with photography, and it gave me real world experience, and it's good for people. Maybe you're not comfortable charging yet for your services. I mean, you still want to do the best job possible, but not charging for your services takes a lot off yourself. So a lot of pressure off. So what I did is I started volunteering for community organizations, churches, homeless shelters, and I did work for friends and family too. So it gave me real world experience in the meantime, whereas, people weren't ready to pay me, but I was still able to do that experience and get those jobs. And it's something that I do use for my resume now. So it's a good way to get that first lot of clients and clients for the future because, if they like your work, if you do a good enough job when you do start charging, or if you feel like you're ready to charge, you're just volunteering to get that first lot of clients. You got potential clients right there. So even if you have experience, it's good to volunteer because then you get people to notice your work. You give people a reason to want to hire you in the future. So places like community organizations, outreach programs, churches, these people live off of donations and volunteers. So these are good places to say, hey, I do this kind of work. I would like to volunteer my services to your organization. A lot of times they will respond very well. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The second way to do it are gigs. Gigs are individual, usually one-time jobs. I mean, they can lead, if the client likes you enough, they can lead to other jobs, but they advertise on, say, Craigslist and newspapers. Individual jobs. They're people who don't need a full-time designer. They're people who just need a wedding invitation. They need an illustration done. They need a logo done. They don't need everything that comes along with hiring a full-time designer. Now, they usually don't pay that much. They usually pay probably about, maybe, the most I've seen is $250. Most I've seen are about $50 to $150. Now, here's the thing. Like I said before, if you're not relying on these jobs as your bread and butter and your main source of income, you can take 1, 2, 3 jobs between doing gigs and volunteer work a month. And you can honestly present to an employer, hey, I've been working this amount of time. So, taking on a few jobs a month, that's perfectly feasible while still working your steady full-time job in the meantime. So you just say, those are 2 good ways. So how do you get the gigs? Gigs are normally advertised on Craigslist. That's what I've been using. You can get them they're in the gig section under creative, and there's a lot of job listings there of people who need, these one-time services. One thing to look out for, one scam, is you'll see some people who say, hey, I need an illustration of a cat. So send me your illustration of a cat and we'll see if I like it or not. Don't do this. Don't do any customized work. Don't do any work for anybody without talking to them. Maybe a consultation, a contract, but you definitely don't blindly send your customized work out to people. It's okay to send an online portfolio to people, but don't do any work for anybody until you have an agreed upon, contract or anything going on. At least, you can't just send random people your work because they're just going to use your illustration without paying you. And the great thing about gigs too is that they don't require a lot of credentials. They just require, they don't need to know how many years you've gone to school. They don't need 10 years of experience. They don't usually even ask how many years you've been doing it. They just want to see your portfolio and know that you can do the work. That's usually all that they ask for. So that's a good way. So this is what I did. I did a few years of these kinds of gigs. Every once in a while, maybe, a few times a month. I did that consistently for about 2 years, and I have recently updated my resume. And my resume currently states that I've been working as a freelance graphic designer for 2 years. And when I present this to employers, On the application, I do keep phone numbers of references for people that I've done, I've done their work, so I have something to put in the phone numbers for applications and for references. I've, for when it says how much you've been paid, I say varied. And when they question me on that, I say, sometimes I do volunteer outreach program work, and sometimes I do freelance work, so it really all depends on the project. It's all completely legit, and it's all completely honest. And I have to say, employers have been reacting to this pretty well. I've gotten, like I said, a number of job offers, and I've gotten interviews. And even interviews are a good sign. If you're getting interviews, that means there's something on your resume that people like. So these are two really good ways to have honest, legit X years amount of experience while still holding a stable job. So that's the important thing. And then there's not so much pressure on yourself to have like this big volume of work because you have another source of income. So, and another good way to get people to notice your work and potential clients for the future is go draw in public. I used to go to Starbucks, a busy Starbucks in my area, and I would have a sketchbook. I would bring my sketchbook and I would try to make kind of like a presentation. I would put up my tabletop easel or whatever, and I would just, start drawing, and people would crowd around me and line up around me, and people were very interested and intrigued by what I was doing. And I would have people hand me, their cards or their numbers, and hey, I need this done, I need that done, call me, do you do this, do you do that? So it was a great way to build up some revenue for work. And again, potential clients. So even if you're still doing volunteer work, if you're just looking for that experience so you have something to put on paper, that is a great way to attract attention to yourself. So this is what I've been doing. It's worked out very well for me. So I hope that you can take this and hopefully apply it to your own life, and good luck on your endeavors. And I'm going to put a link to the description of the book that I used from Amazon. I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm also going to put a link to an online portfolio site that I like to use. I believe it's called Portfolio HD. It's really quick, easy, takes like 5 seconds. So check the description for those 2 links. All right, and good luck on your endeavors.